Yo, what it do, YouTube? Welcome back to FNAF. Your pain fuels us. This video is going to get more into the understanding of what agony is and how it possesses the animatronics to come back with the spirits, basically. Before I start this video, the original links will be down in the description. You can find this video on Game Theorists. It's by matpat. And enough of me talking. We're just gonna hop right in.
Or the timeline. But not for the games. Oh geez, no, I hate myself, but not that much. Whew, I'll probably have to do that at some point down the line, but not today. No, what we're covering today is a different timeline. You see, there's a new monster afoot in the FNAF universe, a killer that has horrifically taken the lives of nearly a dozen people. A killer as yet unseen in the games, but one who will, after today's theory, provide us with key insights into how this whole FNAF universe works, the true nature of Remnant, and how ghosts can possess endoskeletons. As I said, he hasn't been in a game yet, but I have a feeling he'll be showing up soon, maybe as soon as the new game's security breach.
This is an older theory. I almost forgot to say. This is an older theory, so the link will be down in the description if you want to go watch this. But some of you guys wanted to see the older theory, so I respect what you guys want. We're just going to go back, try to see if we can fill in some of the missing blanks and just figure this thing out, really.
But in order to know for sure, it's our job to track his movements, to understand what his goals are, and where he's headed to next. You see, last FNAF theory, we did a surface level analysis of 1:35 AM, the latest installment of the Fazbear Frights series. And boy, was that one a biggie, with huge revelations about sister location, ultimate custom knight's vengeful spirit, and the real identity.
Bro, I know that's the picture that they're supposed to use for Cassidy, bro. But y'all couldn't get like some fan art or something, bro. Like, why she just gotta look evil all the time? Like, she probably wasn't even evil, but then she became evil. But the evil wasn't evil till the evil was evil, bro. You understand what I mean, right? Okay.
Or should I say identities of Golden Freddy. And looking back, since the Fazbear Frights books became a thing, I've done 5 theories on them, covering the many connections that they have to the various facets of FNAF lore. From new strings of murders happening in 1985 to the true identity of psychic friend Fredbear. But despite all of this new FNAF talk, there's been one element I've largely been glossing over: the STITCHWRAITH. In the event that you haven't picked up any of the installments of the book series yet, let me catch you up. Each new book contains 3 short stories, right? That's the selling feature. It's what's advertised on the back of the box, so to speak. But each one also comes with a bit of a bonus. In reality, each book is more like 3 1/5 stories. You see, each one ends with an epilogue, our little MCU post-credits teaser, giving us a piece of yet another story. The tale of the STITCHWRAITH.
What is a STITCHWRAITH? Am I missing something? Cause I never knew nothing about a STITCHWRAITH. Is that like the book only thing? Cause I really don't know.
A story that appears to be spanning out across the ending of each and every book in this new series. And that alone would be pretty.
They got a Foxy book? Hold up. Fazbear Frights #4, Step Closer. I might have to get the book, bro. Foxy is the G.
Across the ending of each and every book in this new series. And that alone would be pretty darn cool, right? Also, it's a brilliant marketing tactic to keep us buying more just to see the end of this thing. Slow clap, Scott Cawthon. Slow clap. But 3 segments in, and it's becoming clear that the tale of the STITCHWRAITH isn't just another horror tale. It's instead a running thread throughout nearly every other shorter story that we've been reading through, which in turn seems to connect it both to the original trilogy of books, as well as even the games. So in order to understand what this thing is and where the lore is headed, it's time to go Easter egg hunting for a monster. Now, admittedly, my first theory on the Fazbear Frights books briefly covered the STITCHWRAITH, and back then I assumed he was Ennard. The Wraith was described in that book as a mysterious figure wearing a black cloak and wearing a white mask with features drawn in thick.
That would make the most sense if it was Ennard. I feel like, bro, cause like
black marker.
Talk,
the
bro.
description specifically calls out his 2 eyes, one of which appears to be blacked out, a big toothy grin with blood around the mouth, and a limping or shambling walk. White mask, blacked out eye, shamble, shake. It seems like a slam dunk for Ennard. However, the epilogue for 1:35 a.m. threw that hypothesis out the window, as it revealed just exactly how the STITCHWRAITH was brought to life. A process that actually reveals a lot about how this series' mythos works. In this epilogue, we're introduced to Dr. Phineas Taggart, not to be confused with his friend Dr. Ferb Fletcher. Phineas is a bit of a mad scientist type, studying the untapped power of human emotion. As he says himself, quote, "Human emotion is slower to impact, more insidious. It emanates from us, or is excreted from us like sweat or tears, and it wafts outward like a noxious cloud."
You see, the problem is always trying experiments, bro. Like, see, I'm not one of the paranoid, you know, there always has to be something going on type, but bro, one of these experiments, zombie apocalypse, bro, I'm gonna be ready for it too. I'm gonna be ready for it. I don't know what you gonna do, but I'm gonna be ready for
soaking
it.
Into the surroundings. In particular, his research is centered around the intense emotion of agony. In order to study it, we see that Phineas collects hundreds of haunted objects to search for this emotion trapped inside. Again, from the book, the word haunted could mean showing signs of torment or some kind of mental anguish. These items on Phineas's shelves weren't possessed by ghosts. The ones that were truly haunted were energized by agony. Agony, I'm convinced, radiates farther from people than any other emotion, Phineas said. My work is focused on my hypothesis that you can take a saturation of agony, add any sort of intelligence, even an artificial one, and they'll combine together to transmute the energy of emotion into the energy of physical action. This, I believe, is what explains what people call haunted objects. And already you might be starting to see how this all ties into what we already know about this franchise. In FNAF 6's Insanity ending, we were introduced to the blueprints outlining how the sister location Scooper worked, and it was...
Imagine getting scooped, bro. All up in your insides, and he just...
Well, it was not what we expected, to say the least. Through those blueprints, we learned about the mystery metal called REMNANT, and its ability to supposedly give life to objects that it touches. The novel The Fourth Closet took it one step further and showed...
Wait, so REMNANT is what they use to rebuild those kids? And then... because they use those parts when they finally took off like the necklace that was holding them together, that's why they turned oh my god, oh my, I'm making conclusions, bro. I'm bringing it in now.
Us the remnant metal being created and used. In that story, we watch as William Afton melts down pieces of the old animatronics, creating a remnant soup that he then uses to give life to new living robots, specifically the Funtime animatronics. Quote, "On the heating table rested the endoskeletons of the original Freddys animatronics, welded and melted together, immobile and featureless, and still inhabited by the spirits of the children who had been murdered inside of them so many years ago, still filled with life and motion and thought, all trapped, all in terrible pain." Usually this goes into something mechanical, something I made, William said. If we remember back to Candy Cadet's stories of 5 things always becoming one thing, 5 kittens getting sewn together, or 5 keys melted down into one, this is exactly what those stories were referring to. But Phineas's experiments in 1:35 a.m. actually take it one step further and give us more insight into the true nature of Remnant. Things that are brought to light via Remnant aren't necessarily infused with a soul, but instead with agony, with intense human emotion, with extreme human suffering. This is important because it means that...
So agony... So they don't have a soul, but it brings them together through like agony, which I'm assuming agony is like anger, right? So they're going to come back angry, feeling emotion as if they were a real life person, but they don't know that they're an animatronic. They just feel as if they're human. I think I
characters like Balloon Boy, the Bitty Babs, and the Mini Rinas and Sister...
What is that and why? You're ugly.
Location. Heck, even animatronics like Mangle don't necessarily need to have actual victims associated with them. We used to look at solving the mysteries of this series as having it be 1-to-1 all the time. Susie equals Chica, Charlie equals the puppet, Cassidy equals Golden Freddy. But what we're starting to learn is that there are other ways to bring things to life in this series, that some animatronics may contain multiple souls, like we talked about last time with Golden Freddy, and some might not contain any souls at all, as long as it always ties back to some extreme tragedy filled with this all-powerful emotion of agony. So with that little analysis in place, let's go back to our story. We see Phineas collect objects associated with horrific tragedies, and via some means funnel all the agony from them down into an endoskeleton, which we're specifically told is meant to be a stand-in for bones, so we're talking like a FNAF 1 or FNAF 2 era endoskeleton here. Phineas then puts the head of a large 3-foot doll on it, a doll whose description bears a shocking similarity to Blank, actually, from the fan game Five Nights at
Blank? Oh, Five Nights at Candy's. I haven't played that yet.
And finally, a battery pack before turning this beast on. And not only does this modern Frankenstein come to life, it immediately kills its creator, Phineas, seemingly by accident, surprisingly, and then runs off, hiding under a black cloak. The STITCHWRAITH has been born. But okay, why am I making such a big deal out of this thing? Why does this guy deserve his own episode? Well, because solving the STITCHWRAITH story in these books is like a game unto itself. You see, there have been very subtle clues hidden throughout the 9 other stories in this series that connect things back to the STITCHWRAITH. My first clue was the battery pack Phineas uses to power the STITCHWRAITH as he's building it. Because it's not just any battery pack. It came from Fetch, the murder animatronic dog from book 2 of the series.
Bro, I'm missing so much and I don't understand. They have a dog animatronic? Okay. I know they have a cat because Five Nights at Candy's is basically cats. Who is Fetch? Like, where did you come from?
Quote, the item in the second box was an animatronic dog that clearly no longer functioned. The dog was an ugly dog, with a triangle-shaped head and a wide mouth full of sharp teeth. In minutes, he'd revealed the dog's battery pack. So immediately we know that the STITCHWRAITH story is happening after the events of the Fetch story from book number 2. So I dug around deeper and more connections kept coming. Earlier in this same book, in the title story 1:35 a.m. about the haunted Ella doll, there's one line referencing a man named Phineas looking online for a particular toy. Quote again, one of the searches for special Ella doll led her to an online ad posted by a user named Phineas who was trying to find one of the dolls. His ad referenced the special Ella doll and said he was willing to pay a premium for the doll's energy.
So the doll is filled with agony then. Let me be right.
Overall, across the 9 stories published so far, 7 seem to tie back to the STITCHWRAITH, allowing us to create a rough timeline of events. So bear with me as we go through this. We know that 1:35 a.m. and Fetch must come first because Phineas is alive and looking for the Ella doll like I just mentioned, and the evil robot dog has just started his murder spree. From there comes the story we just covered, Epilogue 3 and the STITCHWRAITH's creation. After that, he begins to roam the city collecting body parts for some purpose. You may remember book number 1 story to be Beautiful, in which Baby hacks apart a human girl named Sarah in order to steal her identity. Sarah is rebuilt out of junk only for her to fall to pieces at the end.
Okay, I know about that. That's what I was talking about. So I didn't know that Baby was the reason that she died. But then she was rebuilt. And when she took off the pendant, that's when she fell apart.
Well, in epilogue number 1, we hear that the STITCHWRAITH was seen collecting those junk pieces of Sarah. Odd, right? And it's not the only time that it happens either. In book number 2, there's the story Out of Stock about a group of friends who steal a defective plush trap doll, one with oddly human-like eyes and teeth, only for it to go on a rampage. The boys manage to escape by luring it in front of an oncoming train where it gets shattered to pieces. And again, in epilogue number 2, we see the STITCHWRAITH on the scene salvaging whatever he can find of the broken bot. And that's where it would seem to end if it weren't for one other small detail. You see, in one of the other stories in this book, Room for One More, about a security guard being force-fed mini Rena dolls in the...
Yo, force-fed? Force-fed? Is wild.
Basement of Circus Babies Entertainment and Rentals, there's a passing reference to a restaurant called the Snack Space. Hey man, I was picking up a takeout order at Luigi's the other night and saw your ex on a date with the manager of the Snack Space. Seems Super unimportant, right? Well, it would be if this was the only time that it was mentioned, but it's popped up in one of the other stories. In Into the Pit, the very first story, the one about the time-traveling ball pit, the snack space is where the protagonist's father works, which means that Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rentals sister location is also in that world, which in turn connects it to one final story, Count the Ways, where we see an old, broken Funtime Freddy planning to execute a girl trapped inside of his stomach. And while these aren't necessarily directly tied to the Stitchwraith, it certainly feels like at some point all of these stories will come together, as though we're working on chunks of a larger puzzle. We've got a big chunk over here that's the Stitchwraith connections, and a big chunk over here that's all connected through sister location and the snack space, and then you have a few other random pieces over here, and by the end I expect all of them will come together. So assuming that they are all connected, the timeline seems to go about like this. Lonely Freddy, the story about the kids getting mind swapped with mini Freddy dolls, has to be first because it's the only one.
When did they get mind swapped? Bro, we gotta look at these theories for real, because I'm missing so much.
These stories so far where Fazbear locations are open and ready for business. At some point, Freddy Fazbear's closes, leading to room for one more about the underground facility filled with mini arenas hoping to escape, which would parallel what we hear in Sister Location.
Due to the massive success, and even more so the unfortunate closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it was clear that the stage was set, no pun intended, for another contender in children's entertainment.
At some point, Baby and the mini arenas escape from that underground facility, leading to 1:35 a.m. with Phineas looking for the haunted doll and Greg activating the murder dog in an abandoned Freddy Fazbear's in Fetch. From there, the next major moment is Stitchwraith's creation in Epilogue 3, which then leads to his quest for body parts in To Be Beautiful Epilogue 1 and Out of Stock Epilogue 2. We also know that Into the Pit and The New Kid happen near the end of the timeline, since they both feature a closed down, forgotten, or repurposed Freddy's building. Also, there's Count the Ways, which is towards the end of this timeline, grouped with these other stories, since a retired Funtime Freddy is just randomly sitting in a garage killing kids. What does all of this tell us? What was the purpose of doing all this work? Well, first, all of this seems to connect us pretty solidly into the book trilogy. The fact that we have an Ella doll infused with agony that Phineas wants his hands on perfectly matches the Ella doll that Henry made for his daughter Charlie. To quote from the fourth closet, agony erupted, flooding the room with its sound. A man lay curled on the floor, something cradled tightly in his arms, and when his mouth opened, the room shook with the sound of his anguish. Who is that? Charlie said anxiously. What is he holding? You don't recognize her? Elizabeth said. That's Ella, of course. It's all your father had left after you were taken. He cried over that cheap store-bought rag doll for 2 months, cried into it, bled into it, poured his grief over it, and at which point he makes the robotic Ella doll that we talked about in the last episode. So what we're seeing in these stories appears to be, at least to some extent, the aftermath of that trilogy of books, which also means that we might already know the true identity of the Stitchwraith. It's a bit of a long shot, but it's my personal headcanon until proven otherwise. I think that the endoskeleton that powers the Stitchwraith, the main body that's become the conduit for all of this agony, is the same endoskeleton that killed Henry. The robot that he used to end his own life. The stabbing robot, which, let's be honest, is like the most complicated way to do that sort of thing.
The
build
stabbing
a robot to stab you to death? What? Creative types, man, they are weird. Anyway, we're told in the Silver Eyes that it's a basic Gen 1 endoskeleton with an unfinished face, which would explain exactly why Phineas needs to put a head on it. Quote from the Silver Eyes, she could see its face, if it could be called a face. Its features were scarcely formed, crude and shapeless. Its blind eyes were only raised bumps like the eyes of a statue, seeing nothing but its own grief. We also know that this endoskeleton would be absolutely filled to the brim with agony. I mean, as far as endoskeletons go, a murder bot built by a grieving father is a pretty huge deal. And it's apparently an important enough character to—
wait, so it unalived him because he put so much agony into it that it came, when it first started booted up or whatever, it was like so much anger and grief that it just overflowed and it killed him. So would that be his own fault, or is that I don't know.
To this franchise to have also appeared at the end of the book trilogy. When Charlie is being attacked by Baby, it's this same murder bot and its trusty knife that Charlie uses to do them both in. I have a very, very strong theorist instinct that the STITCHWRAITH will, at some point during this book series, be revealed to be connected back to Henry and his bizarre death. Just saying, the pieces are in place for us.
But was that necessary,
Oh yeah, and
bro?
assuming that the Fazbear Frights series is connected a bit closer to the book trilogy, like it appears to be, we know that Book 5, Bunny Call, features a story about a man with gruesome burns over his body and an iron will to live. I mean, we already suspected that that was William Afton, but going back to see how his story ended in the fourth closet, we see that his death is far from certain. In his final moments, his hospital gown catches fire and he's pulled into a massive furnace. But then, nothing. No official confirmation that that burning actually kills him. Therefore, a burned man in a hospital who refuses to die sounds like a certain yellow bunny we all know who always comes back.
Yup.
And with that, I've had enough FNAF for now. Oh man, it has been a lot. The new book comes out in early July, so at the very least, I get a break for a couple of weeks. Thank goodness. No, no, no! Man, I am a little on edge these days. 2020 has really started to mess with my head. I need to relax. But I've seen all of this, literally everything on every streaming platform.
Okay, I think we're yeah, okay, that's gonna be all.
VPN.com/matpat. Link is down in the description.
NordVPN away!
And in the meantime, remember, it's all just a theory. A
game
theory. Stay sane out there, guys, and thanks for watching.
All right, I had to do, you know, it had to happen. I actually really enjoyed this theory. I'm not going to lie. This theory, like, had me on the edge of my seat because it was, like, stuff I knew and then stuff I still didn't know. And it's like, it's an older theory, so it's like I should know these things, but I still didn't know some of this. Like, who is Fetch? How exactly does Agony work? Ella dolls, STITCHWRAITH, like, my brain can't compute, bro. Like, help me help you help